I'm at Forno's Bakery in Tarpon Springs, Florida, and I'm with Chef Demetrios. He's going to demonstrate making Greek bread and baklava. I can't wait.
All right, my name is Chef Demetrios Salivaras. I'm from Dimitri's on the Water, and we're here at the bakery, Forno's Bakery, which is also one of our businesses. And we're going to be making traditional Greek village bread. So we have actually 5 ingredients here. We're using a high gluten flour. Reason why I like to use a high gluten flour, makes it a much more dense bread. Seems like it's easier to work with. We're also using an instant yeast. I work with Fleischmann's. I like it. Always been dependable. We're using salt, granulated sugar, and a vegetable oil. Okay, so now we're going to start adding our flour right to the mixer. Put our flour in the mixer. We're going to start adding our ingredients. So what I'm looking for in this spread is, remember, baking is a science. So you can't just add a little bit of this and a little bit of that when it comes to baking. It's not like cooking. Baking is a true science. So ingredients are important. They have to be exact, especially when it comes to risers or flavors when you're adding them. A little too much or a little too little can affect the whole outcome of what you're trying to produce here. So far we've got our bread here. Our dough is being incorporated nicely. We just needed a few more minutes. I like to allow it to go for 5 to 10 minutes. Any more than that, you've overbeaten the bread. So 2 or 3 more minutes, we'll let that beat. And while that's going on, we'll check out the baklava. Now we've got the dough already mixed, incorporated. We're gonna let it rise, we're gonna let it rest, we're gonna leave it alone. Take a garbage bag, split in half. I'm gonna stick it right over the top of it. And I'm just gonna cover that and let it go. And now we're gonna start making the baklava. Everything we have on this table is what you're gonna need to make a pan of baklava. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna break it all down and show you today on how it's done. 5 main ingredients: walnuts, cinnamon, sugar, and breadcrumbs. I'm showing you a piece of bread because what we do is we take our old bread here at the bakery, we dry it out, and we make our own breadcrumbs. So, how do we begin? Well, we have butter set aside that's been softened. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grease this pan. Don't be afraid of it, because in the end, the phyllo dough is going to absorb most of all the butter you have added. So, we've coated our pan first, and we're gonna take 2 layers of phyllo dough. You're gonna lay them down and make sure that you leave yourself about 1.5 to 2 inches of the phyllo dough on the outside of the pan. Remember, we coated this pan pretty well. Now we're gonna take our butter again and we're gonna coat the inside of the dough. You don't wanna overcoat this because if you do, it's gonna become soggy and you don't want that. But at the same time, you wanna make sure that you have some butter in between each row of your phyllo dough. You're gonna take, remember all those 5 ingredients? Well, we ground them all up, and this is what it looks like. You're gonna have walnuts, breadcrumbs, cinnamon, now we ground up, the sugar, everything's in this bowl. You're gonna take this, and you're gonna lay a nice coat of it. Don't be cheap on this. Make sure you put plenty here. This is important because this is how either when you've had those baklavas that seem like it's all phyllo dough, that's because the person didn't put enough walnuts here. Take another sheet of phyllo dough. Take your 2 sheets, lay them straight across, dead center. Tuck it down. Okay? And now we're taking our butter every time. Butter, 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 butter. But don't just drizzle it on there. Because like I said, those are creating those little gaps of air, and that causes that crispiness. All right, 2 more sheets. People ask me, how many layers should I do? That's up to you. I look at it, the more layers, the more love. The more love, the better tasting this product's gonna be. We added more butter, drizzle that butter on there, take more walnuts. We're gonna keep adding those walnuts. Your walnut mix Another drizzle of butter. 2 sheets at a time. That's going to give you that fullness, and at the same time, no matter how much butter you put on there, you're not really over buttering. And we're starting to begin to fold in our baklava. You got to take your time here, be patient. Don't feel bad if the dough breaks. It's okay, because remember, it looks like there's a lot of dough there, but there really isn't. And I'll tell you why. You want to make sure you get these corners really nice and wet, because you're going to take your last couple pieces of phyllo dough, and this is the trick here. You want to take 2 or 3, you want to take them over the top, all right? And this is my trick. I take a plastic bowl scraper, and I begin to tuck my corners in, right? Now, you can either tuck all of this in, okay, or you can cut it. It's up to you. Same time, if you tuck it in, you're not going to have dark edges on your baklava, because those edges are going to be, that darkness is going to be from the outside phyllo dough. So that phyllo dough is going to be basically a protective to the rest of the baklava. And now it's time to cut. This is what you want your pan to look like. We've buttered our excess edges, so that's going to just sit in that all nice and lovely. Here's a saw blade. I call them, I call it the accordion pizza cutter. There's different, probably, the French have probably got a good name for this. What we're doing is you're going to go from the end to the end. And that's how you know you have a perfectly even line. You're not going to use this to cut, you're using this to mark. Okay, this is just used to mark. Start one way, and you go the other way. And that will give you your even cuts. This is the trick. You're going to take your knife because you've got your markings down, but you've got to be very careful, because if you don't, and you try to cut through all the way at the first time, all your phyllo dough is going to flip right up on top of you. Gentle, gentle, gentle is the word I can have you use. Gentle. Keep cutting like this, keep cutting like this. See what I mean? How you got to be very gentle? Because that phyllo dough will pop right up. Even though we put all that butter in there, there's still those dry pieces. And those dry pieces are what's going to create that beautiful crispiness. All right. So we let the baklava sit now, because we made our baklava. We're going to let that sit for about an hour, hour and a half, refrigerated. When it comes out, it should look like this. This is the full pan. You notice that the actual butter has been absorbed by the phyllo dough. Everything looks just super happy. So we're going to take this baklava, the pan of baklava now, we're going to put it right into the oven. The oven should be at around 375 to 400 degrees. Lay that in the oven, and don't take that out till it's perfectly golden brown. We've had that in there, let's take a look at it. All right, golden brown. That's what we're looking for, right there. So now that we let the bread rise, about 45 minutes, you want it to double in size. We're gonna take some flour, and we're gonna basically flour our board where we're gonna be working. You're gonna take a little bit of flour, you're gonna lay it right on top of the pot, so that when you go to pull out your dough, it's not sticky. Take your pot, tip it to the side, start pulling all the dough out. Use a dough scraper. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna portion the bread out. You wanna make sure, depending on the size of loaves you have, if you wanna do pans or you wanna do just traditional loaves. You take yourself a dough cutter. It's a small pan, it's small cutting, it's dull, it's got a rounded edge. It's great for scraping and cutting dough. So what we do here at the bakery for the restaurants, we do a pound of 4 to 8, a pound of 8 ounces each. So I'm gonna cut it up, and I'm pretty good at this, so I basically know where I'm at. So 1.8 pounds is what I make. So that's basically what you want right there. Now that we've got those dough, we've let it rise again. What we're doing now is we're gonna take our dough and we're gonna make rolls. Long tubes. You'd think this was really easy, but you'd be surprised how many people I brought in their kitchen to try to roll this, and it's the hardest thing for them to do. You can't put too much pressure, and you gotta just bring it down nice and easy. And remember, this is gonna rise again. So it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Remember, we're making hand-rolled bread here. This is not made by a machine. This is all made completely by hand. I'm gonna take the bread, I'm just gonna let it sit on the side. Let it sit 35 to 40 minutes. Let it rise again. We just worked with it. It's a little tired. It needs time to rest. That's how I look at it. Let the bread rest before we put it in the oven. And we've let the bread rise. We've let it rise for its second time, or basically its third time, because we let it rise in the bowl. We let it rise after we cut it, and we let it rise right after the proofer. We let it rise for a little bit, so it's ready to go. You can make designs if you want. You can add flour, you can add sesame, you can add anything you want to this. But this is the most traditional way of making this Greek bread. So all we're gonna do is put the loaves right in the oven. Put them right in the oven, close the oven, get yourself a cup of coffee if it's early, and sit down, because this is gonna take probably around 25 to 30 minutes, depending on your ovens. You're only gonna check it once or twice because, like, you know what they say, a pot of water won't boil if you're watching it, so let it cook. It's in the oven. The bread's been in the oven for about 35 to 40 minutes. We're gonna pull it out, golden brown. That's how it should look. I put a cut to the top of it so you can see how it sliced it open there. But that's our traditional Greek bread. So we're gonna pull it out of the oven and we're gonna eat some. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you for listening and watching us. That's delicious. I can eat the whole loaf. Good bread. Come on down to Dimitri's or Mykonos restaurant. Check us out at Foodnos Bakery and have some of our great bread. See you soon.